Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel Mayer Passer. After a very long hiatus, welcome to another episode of Director's Critiques. Today we shall be discussing, and more appropriately for this time of year since it is almost Halloween, the films of Tim Burton, which is one of my personal favorite directors. Now, an interesting thing about Tim Burton is that he closely examines the outcast, the oddball, the individual who seems to be unable to comprehend or socialize with the norms of the world. But at the same time, he portrays the normal world as odd, whimsical, and unfamiliar to us, as if portraying it from the oddball's point of perspective, thus questioning the nature of normalcy. This is clearly identified in Edward Scissorhands, in which our character, played by Johnny Depp, which has appeared in almost every single Tim Burton movie to date, has been taken out of his normal environment and put into this strange, weird, suburban area that is unfamiliar to him, but familiar to most. But to us, we are seeing it from his perspective. Therefore, it is weird to us as well. Now, moving on, I notice that he plays on two different styles, retro 50s and German Expressionism, which I can tell he was heavily influenced by for many of his creations. For instance, in Batman, he stated that he wanted to create a German Expressionist feel for the world of our superhero titular character. Now, when it comes to 50s nostalgia, it is no doubt that the movie Mars Attacks plays on the ode to those old B-movie satirical films that were made during the Cold War era. In my sense, he tries to look in suburbia not in a satirical way, but rather in a weird, nostalgic way, as if remembering his past as a child, what he used to see in the movies, what he saw in such shows by Vincent Price or Val Lewton or Jacques Tourneur, or movies that were made that took place in suburbia that you saw in those drive-in 3D movies back in the 50s. But another interesting thing about him is that he himself is kind of an autobiography in his movies. What I mean by this is that he's able to express himself, to let out what he felt inside as a child, as an outcast. In fact, he once stated that Edward Scissorhands is above all his most personal of films, because he as a child, like Edward, felt alone and isolated and unable to comprehend with what was normal and what wasn't. This is repeatedly shown in Batman, and Ed Wood, and Sleepy Hollow, and Corpse Bride, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and a great many other of his films. Now, the reason why he's my favorite is because he is not afraid to portray the dark Gothic world that most people would not dare to enter, to go through. But one thing that really is for certain is that he tries to show that what seems scary and frightening may be actually helpful and beneficial to the characters. This is clearly seen in Corpse Bride, because the dead, when we think of the world of the dead, we think of rotting corpses and skeletons and such, but actually this world is portrayed as more colorful and more bright and luscious than the normal world. I'm not suggesting that it's better to be dead than living, but what I'm saying is that perhaps the unfamiliar, the unknown terrain can actually be beneficial to help with our life. But I believe in the end, Tim Burton is in many ways a master of the dark Gothic fantasy.